Back to the infamous question of who is the pastor. Well, in 2012, admittedly, I couldn't answer that question. However, the last time I asked the question, the Spirit answered by stating that it would be a traveling pastor, but that I needed to go look in the mirror to discover who was to do the first service. So I received my ordination papers on July 22nd of 2017. Now what was my excuse going to be? So here is the shy little one who loves to be backstage saying prayers and doing healing work. But hold on, God is calling. Curveball number 1,000,000, and God laughed. Allow me to explain. Hello and welcome, my name is Miranda Tarr, and this is my story of how God has totally transformed my life. From the time I was a very young woman, I began having back issues. Sure, I did exercises to strengthen and stretch it, but at age 19, it became paralyzing and forced me to withdraw from college for an entire semester. I was no longer able to get to the bathroom on my own, put socks and shoes on, or even touch my knees. I spent a lot of time in bed, staring at the ceiling, asking God, why me? And in the deepest, darkest hours, cussing him and begging him to take me home before I decided to suicide off this earth. As time went on, this excruciating pain led me down a path to multiple doctor visits, MRIs, epidurals, and medications. The diagnosis? 3 slipped and or herniated discs, and arthritis that was beginning to fuse my lower vertebrae. The recommendation from a doctor who used to work at the Mayo Clinic? Have rods and pins placed in my back, a surgery that brought with it no guarantee of a better tomorrow, or even better existence, and had to be redone about every 10 years. He also recommended that I stay on an anti-inflammatory and antidepressant for life. Never have kids, as it could cause undue stress in my back. Wait, I thought, the pattern was grow up, start school, graduate high school, go to college, get a job, pay bills, meet your knight in shining armor, and have kids. The doctor goes on to say, oh, and never ride a horse, because it could totally damage your back in a matter of seconds. Riding a horse was my childhood dream. I sat there stunned, saying a prayer for wisdom and discernment. The doctor left and gave my parents and I time to talk. I totally disagreed with the recommendation, but how was I ever going to work, pay bills, and have a life if I didn't take this recommendation? At that moment, I heard God speak to me and say that there were alternatives. When the doctor returned, I inquired about these alternatives, and he stated so far as he knew, there were none. I said, well, in all due respect, I just can't allow you to proceed with your recommendation. I left there praying to God for an answer. He promises us a life full of peace, joy, and love, not pain, worry, and fear. During this time, a friend of mine in the dairy goat world discovered that I was having major back issues and decided to reach out to me and share his incredible story. His name was Jennings, and he had lived for years with a broken back. His incredible story gave me a glimmer of hope. Within 2 weeks, my prayer was answered. I received a phone call from a then neighbor friend of mine who was seeking someone with pain to get certification in the bioenergetic synchronization technique. Could this change the 21 days in bed and 2 decent day cycle? I went to the first appointment, unsure what to expect. My criteria were all met. The focus was God, and it involved no physical pain. Toward the end of that time, my friend looks at me in the eye and says to me, if Salt Mule were giving you her best, would you whip her? No, I replied. Then why do you do this to yourself? Soon after, years of pent-up tears flooded out. Oh yeah, that was painful to the ego, edging God out. These emotions continued to flow for days. It didn't take me long to realize that the diagnosed back problem was truly more of an emotional issue. But was I willing to face my fears and make the necessary changes? It hadn't taken me long, nor did I need to be a genius to discover that my energy never lied. Those brick walls I worked really hard to build, or so I thought, but really the glass walls discussed in the Healing Begins song, and certain gifted people could see right through to the root of the problem, if I allowed them. The more transparent I became, the better I felt. Soon after, I made a daily commitment to myself about saying affirmations and prayers, along with daily meditation time. There were many days I would put tack on Salt Mule and we would ride from 8 a.m. to almost sundown. She loved her mommy time and became a pro at eating grass with a bridle on, while I discovered who God created me to be, learned to talk mule, and be one with all that is. Salt provided me with a safe place to release hundreds of millions of pent-up tears and emotions. Helped me to discover my inner child, learn how to play, and even laugh again. Oh sure, many of my friends thought I had lost my mind. Others could see the changes and stepped into the trenches with me and prayed. Could Jesus totally heal me? Within the first month or so of appointments, I witnessed something I fought so very hard as a youngster to get rid of. A native angel or spirit guide, now known to me as Chief White Wolf. No one could ever see this chief but me, so was I losing my mind? Was he satanic? Why did he continually sit at the end of my bed in full headdress, lit up like a Christmas tree? Why couldn't he go find someone else to bother at 3 a.m.? Now I need you to understand I worked hard for 20 plus years to keep this chief away, and now he is back. Appointments must stop. This is more than I bargained for. My friend could also sense Chief's presence and promised to get me the assistance I needed. So we pack up the car to head to the spiritual center of light, Camp Chesterfield. I met a good many people there that day, and love just oozed out of these people in this place and went all over me. Some of them said they could see my chief or hear him. Oh great, now what is one to do? At this place I was considered normal, whatever that means. I left there praying that if Chief were truly here to assist, that he was of God, and that he too could assist me on my healing journey. I certainly had not fared well without Chief on my own. I decided after much prayer that I was to continue with these appointments despite Chief's reappearance. Within 6 months of appointments, my life was much better, less pain, and more days out enjoying life and praising God. One day, during prayer and meditation, it came to me that I must be that hope that Jennings was to me, and serve God and demonstrate to his kingdom that they too can be healed, as outlined in Mark 11:24. I tell you, you can pray for anything, and if you believe that you've received it, it will be yours. This led me to the next step. I went seeking a modality that I could learn that could be used on both people and animals. After all, we are all energetic beings. I then discovered Reiki energy healing. I had never experienced God's healing in this way, but I became more aware of my thoughts, emotions, and even the miracles that were going on right before my eyes, that had once gone unnoticed. I began to see and hear God's signs daily. I went on to get my Reiki 1, 2, and Reiki Master Teacher degree. By the time I completed my Reiki 2 degree, my life had been totally transformed. I rarely had back issues, pain about once every 4 to 6 months, if that. I take no medications and use only essential oils, Reiki, and the power of prayer. What began to happen next took me by surprise and has forever changed the course of my life. As I would go to sleep at night, I would slide into a trance-like state where the possibilities of what I could see and the knowledge I had access to appeared to be endless. Tricia would ask me questions about people or animals I had never met, and somehow I knew the answers. This so-called God-given gift at times becomes a curse. Empathy, gut feelings, and intuition slowly went into overdrive. The work we began doing was much like that of Edgar Casey, the sleeping prophet. The healing from beyond began to roll in. Healing miracles occurred in every stall in the barn, starting with the very horse I set atop now, a bayfly. Oh, did I mention that I'm terrified of heights, that my feet should never leave the ground? Well, 10 years ago, at age 22, Bayfly was barely able to walk. He couldn't physically trot or canter. A lot of healing work later, Bayfly took me over my very first jump. Eventually, we both healed ourselves enough. He could jump a 2.5-foot fence, and I could do it without having a heart attack, or screaming, or bailing off his back. I quickly learned that heights simply give you a new perspective of perceived obstacles. Then people began talking about healing they had received. At this point, I knew there was no turning back. What I had planned for my life, going to college, getting my veterinary technology degree, finding my knight in shining armor, etc., was nothing compared to what God has ordained. I have met people and animals from all over the world, and I have been incredibly blessed to witness these folks' lives transformed by the only one who has the power and the authority, the ultimate physician, the wonderful counselor, the Prince of Peace, God, Jesus. These slender threads have constructed an incredibly beautiful tapestry. But he isn't done with me yet, because each day I get up and say thanks for another beautiful day that he has created. God, allow me to be your healing hands and feet, and allow me to speak encouraging, inspiring, and motivational words into someone else's life. Stay tuned, there's more for another service.